Hey everyone, before we begin today's video, do check out the campaign to get your very own plush version of Raj, our mascot of the channel. Do check out the link below in the pinned comment for more information. Thank you! Now, these guys may be very memorable for being nefarious, but at the same time, not all of them actually got results. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Today, we are taking a step away from our usual positive note and focusing on making characters good and what the less good ones are like. In any good story, a villain has some sort of redeeming quality or a trait which grounds them in reality, and thusly, it makes them relatable or engaging for the audience. Even Frieza had one, with his polite, albeit sarcastic, discourse with the Dragon Team through his respective sagas. You see, a character who is evil and has no redeeming qualities at all, that's not a bad character. That's just a bad guy badly written. So today we are focusing on these guys and seeing what makes them tick. Now, like in most series, Dragon Ball villains never really win. The only notable example that I can think of off the top of my head in anime is in Berserk, where the demons win, and they win hard. Despite some of the baddies that we saw in Dragon Ball being quite formidable in their actions, they would fall down ultimately, and it was usually down to a Saiyan or a Saiyan hybrid winning the day. No matter how big the threat that our heroes faced, they will always come out on top victorious from their struggles against the evildoers in the end. You know the phrase, the journey is the reward? It really rings true with Dragon Ball. Most endings aren't really worth it. Most, not all, there have been some very good endings, but most of the time, it's the route to that ending which makes the bad guys stand out in particular. So Haverock and I thought it might be quite fun to look back with our analytical caps on and really have a closer look at these villains of Dragon Ball and rank how these DB villains come across in terms of their success and how much of their ultimate goals were accomplished, or in some cases, not accomplished. Now before we begin, we must point out a small but important disclaimer. We are omitting redeemed characters from this list, such as Vegeta, Piccolo Jr., and the Pilaf gang from being assessed. Why is this? Well, it's all down to the fact that we've been talking plenty about all their anti-heroic exploits as of late in videos, and so otherwise we would just be repeating ourselves. Go and check out our previous videos for those. Also, no Majin Buu either. Wait, what? No, I get it. He is a very notable villain in terms of how much mayhem he caused, but that is also the reason why he isn't being subject to this grilling. It's because he is a force of pure chaos. He doesn't really have much of a goal. Boo and Broly are the ultimate examples of chaotic evil. You know, you can expect the same doom and destruction combo from them. There's no real nuance to them. For this list, we shall work our way up from the worst of the bad to the best of the bad, really taking stock of what they did and how much of their mission they realized before being defeated. Or not defeated in the case of a couple of them. This is the baddie bad discussion, so let's start at the bottom of the list. Our first subject of focus today is something both surprising and yet actually unsurprising. That is, of course, King Piccolo. Now, I know that a lot of you really like King Piccolo, and in terms of his behavior and his overall impression that he gives the audience, he is indeed a mightily scary bad guy, which did give our Dragon Team a real fright back in the day, and something extremely novel for the original Dragon Ball series. But you have to remember, this list is all about how well they did in terms of their own personal goals, what they set out to do. So while the beginnings of his evil rule of the planet went quite promisingly, as well as efficiently, and it seemed like no one could really stand up to him at all, as well as the fact that he restored himself to his youth and prime, it all came crumbling down in a spectacular way against Goku on the second bounce. Sure, his arc was very pivotal for the series as a whole. It was the prototype storyline for the future Dragon Ball Z, and when you compare it to that series, the story beats are very similar. This is where it all began. If you like Dragon Ball Z, you should really check out the King Piccolo saga. This was the first terror of this scale in the series ever, but when he was beaten, everything returned to normal really quickly, like eerily quickly. Usually it requires a lot of reparation, but after that, it seemed like people just forgot that a giant green demon ruled over them for a few days and let criminals run rampant. Oh, that thing? Pfft, that was so last year. And not only that, but his legacy, his son, did not turn out the way that he hoped him to be. Not by a long shot. If he got to see him fuse with Kami, I'm sure he would be absolutely seething. After a long redemption storyline, Piccolo Jr. has not only redeemed himself, but has also made peace with Kami and become one of the ultimate good guys of the series, even though you could describe his mood as being quite stoic for a good guy. But he's also a wise mentor to many characters, as well as the perfect Uncle Piccolo for Pan. I still can't get over how cute that name is. It's even got to the point that when someone hears the name Piccolo, they don't necessarily associate that name with the evil king anymore. It takes a moment to clarify, but the damage is done. That's right, King Piccolo is so buried that even the memory of him has been buried, which is the reason why we put him on the bottom of this list and give him 1 evil layer out of 5. It would have been 0, but the fact that he was able to actually get the wish on the Dragon Balls and then destroy them saves him from total failure in our regards in terms of his mission. Now the next choice might surprise you even more, but the second evildoer from the bottom is Perfect Cell. And it's not easy for me to say this. As you may know, Cell is my favourite bad guy in the series, but I have to take a step back from my admiration of his impressive jawline and really get an understanding of what he actually was able to do. Like I said, while Haverock and I love Cell, we have to admit that in the end, he lost in a quite spectacular way. Probably one of the most visually spectacular ways in the whole series. However, he is above King Piccolo for a couple of reasons. The main one being is that he did achieve his main goal of reaching his perfect form. That was why he was created in the first place, and despite this coming about because our little krill dog momentarily became a horn dog, Cell is still like, it happened, it still happened, it counts, my perfect body was achieved, no take backsies. But sadly, he didn't get the true fight from Goku that he had long hoped for. It was actually encoded into him. In fact, he was beaten by a wild card, and while still remembered by society as some kind of boogeyman, his memory remains distorted, as most of the Earth's populace believe that he was bested not by Gohan, but by Hercule. Now I think you could imagine that by witnessing that scene, it's hardly a fitting memory for one of the most destructive foes that the Dragon Team had ever faced. It's a most unkind means to remember him by. If they ever bring back Cell into the story, who's going to be the one to tell him that Hercule is remembered more than he was? There were stronger enemies that they fought for sure, but Cell did leave some kind of impact on them. Sadly, nowadays he is peddled about by the marketers to generate more sales of Hercule toys. Next on the list is Frieza. Now I told you this list wasn't your average list. So very few villains in the Dragon Ball universe have had the arguable pleasure of being beaten by the Dragon Team 3 times, and yet despite all that, still be around to marvel in the delights of facing Goku, and also not truly succumbing. But if you want to be picky, it's actually 4 times if we count the shenanigans with Broly. Each time he has come up against the Dragon Team in some way, he failed miserably. And each time, he returned stronger and more determined to beat the Saiyans thanks to the power of marketing! And he still got whomped for it. He's basically become the villain of the week at this point, who will lose and then, oh, I'll get you next time, you filthy monkeys! Next time! But arguably his biggest victory was at the Tournament of Power. You see, not only did his last outing convince Goku that he might be actually a useful ally, even though there were other alternatives in the fray, he has also proven to be quite a successful wildcard in himself. I remember the reaction when he was peddled out for Team Universe 7 when it was fresh, being so vitriolic and hated. But now, nearly 3 years later, it's regarded as one of the better plot points of the arc in most of your eyes. They managed to make it work. I'm impressed. Credit where credit is due. And yes, his methods weren't always orthodox, but there is no denying that without his unique style of going about things, the team, Universe 7, might have lost against Universe 11. And even though Jiren or Toppo would have done the right thing for the multiverse, like 17 did, the win wouldn't have gone to Universe 7 still, and that would have been a very salty thing for Goku to deal with. In this context, Frieza was almost like Mephistopheles, not the magical cat, so you know, in Johann Wolfgang's von Goethe's Faust. I am part of that power which eternally wills evil and eternally works good. Which is ironic, actually, as the recent iteration of Frieza is more of a devil and a tempter, rather than a full-on evil overlord. But he is slowly but steadily getting back to business, as we saw at the end of the Broly movie, going back to conquering a planet for his own gain. On a less rapid pace though, mind you. Also, unlike the 2 gentlemen below him, he is still alive, despite moments of not being alive. Now, that is something that very few past Dragon Ball villains could claim after their first outing. Okay, now we're getting to some more successful ne'er-do-wells on this list, as the next one is Dr. Gero. What? Dr. Gero? Why Dr. Gero, Masako? He's cast out very early in the saga, why him? Well, yes, indeed he was. You are most observant there, my good fellow. But if you take a look at his machinations and the fact that he started out as a regular human, his plans have been ridiculously successful. He wished to better humanity through technology, and even though in the story it was limited to his own personal bubble, with the bare resources of a sublab to hand, he really got results. Cell achieved perfection, the Dragon team was largely unprepared for his mission, and even if they won, he was able to be effective in avenging the Red Ribbon Army. That's right, at the end of the day, from beyond the grave, he managed something that only Raditz was able to do before him, which wasn't Raditz's intention, to be fair, and that was to eliminate Son Goku. And yes, granted, that was a willing sacrifice on the Saiyan's part, but in the end, the directive had been fulfilled. His machinations led our protagonist to a point when there was no other option but to take one for the team. Not only that, but his demise was kind of in vain and forced Gohan to act. We often overlook that, but ultimately, in terms of personal goals, Gero won out. As much as you can win being a dismembered head, of course. And thanks to 17's involvement in the Tournament of Power, he also achieved his goal in bettering the human race like he wanted. Even though you could describe that as being achieved indirectly. No, it totally counts. 17 was created by me and so therefore it counts. The guy wanted Goku to go away and improve the human race. He sort of did both those things. In his own twisted and evil ways, though. Now, number one on this list is Zamasu. At the best of times, the Goku Black saga is needlessly convoluted. Even though it was blessed with many great scenes, and Goku Black himself was such a welcome addition, a very good interpretation of an evil Goku that we all wanted for decades, it was still tainted with tons of missed opportunities and weird creative choices. But despite initially despising Zamasu, we actually learned to like him. I mean, I certainly did. The whole point of his arc was that we were meant to not like him. Why would we like him? He was trying to eliminate everything. The evil Kai had one major goal, and that was to rid the universe of all mortals. And you know what? By corrupting the entire universe with his infinite form, he forced Zeno's hand enough for the Omni King to basically give him what he wanted. Zeno erased everything, but there is no denying that no mortals live in that timeline anymore, which was kind of interesting in the first place. How did he want the universe to look like after he got his wish? Did he want to rule over a rocky wasteland? Well, the Triple T failed to show us that properly, but in a sense, Zamasu had a grand plan, and he got to actually act it out. He just went down with everybody else is all. I feel that Zamasu just wanted to press the reset button in his own way and dictate how mortals evolved. Sort of what we're doing in our What If Zamasu Did Nothing Wrong series if you want to go and check that out later. Now, before we finish, let's go with the honourable mentions of GT villains. As much as we criticise GT for various reasons, the villains there have raised the character's awareness on many fronts, starting from the atrocities of the Tuffle Spat, ending on a bit of self-reflection in regards to the overuse of the Dragon Balls. If GT can be praised by something else other than Super Saiyan 4 being a thing, it is that the villains are more of a concept that feel like a natural evolution of the story. Even though it's a cool concept sometimes, the Shadow Dragons, that's simply not enough. Still, if someone were to reach a similar success in the modern Dragon Ball that the GT villains were able to do, we wouldn't complain. The Moro saga is coming to an end, and where will we put Moro on this list? Questions for later. Time will tell, but always remember that even if they were beaten, some of the villains did succeed at least at something, and that's what makes them formidable and scary. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with this list? Who would you think are the most and least effective baddies in Dragon Ball history? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!